I, 41M, never thought I'd be one of those guys writing some depressing, soul-crushing story on the internet. But here I am, sitting in a dark living room at 2:17 a.m., with my daughter's stuffed animal on the couch next to me, trying to process the fact that she's not even mine. I've been married to my wife, Jenna, 39F, for 15 years. We met when I was 25. She was smart, confident, hilarious, and had this way of lighting up a room without even trying. We got married young by today's standards, but I never questioned it. We were solid. At least, I thought we were. A year into the marriage, she told me she was pregnant. I was thrilled. Scared, sure, but excited. I'd always wanted to be a dad. We had a daughter, whom I'll call Lily, and she became my whole world. I did everything. First bottles, first fever, midnight diaper runs, tea parties, dance recitals. I was the kind of dad who would cancel business trips just to be home for her school play. I lived for her laugh. I worked overtime just to afford her violin lessons, which she quit, by the way, but I didn't care. I just wanted her to feel loved, secure, and safe. Jenna stayed home for the first few years, then got back into her career, marketing. Long hours, lots of networking, conferences out of town. I never questioned her. She'd always been ambitious. I respected that. To anyone looking from the outside, we were the definition of a perfect family. Holiday photos, birthday parties with those dumb Pinterest mom themes, family hikes every other weekend. Hell, I even ran the damn neighborhood barbecue for 5 years straight. But the truth was buried deeper. A truth Jenna had cemented under years of forced smiles and casual lies. I just didn't know it yet. The first crack in the picture-perfect frame didn't come with a bang. It came with a throwaway comment that stuck to the back of my brain like gum on a shoe. We were watching TV one night, some crime drama where a paternity test came up, and Jenna casually said, "God, I can't imagine how awkward that must be. Like, what if your kid wasn't yours and you never knew?" I laughed. I didn't even look up. I said something like, "Well, thank God we're boring." She didn't laugh. Just sat there, arms crossed, eyes locked on the screen. Looking back, I remember how tense she looked. I remember that weird pause, how she didn't touch me for the rest of the night. But at the time, I chalked it up to hormones, a bad day at work, whatever. I didn't realize that was the first thread pulling loose. And once you tug at the thread, the whole thing starts to unravel. After that night with the crime show and Jenna's offhand comment, something in me shifted, not consciously at first, but in that quiet, background noise way that only shows up when something's not sitting right. I kept going through the motions like any other day, work, home, dinner, bedtime stories. But I started noticing things. Tiny things. Lily had always looked more like Jenna, which never bothered me. She had her mom's eyes, her smile, her dimples. But there were moments I started to wonder. Her complexion was noticeably darker than either of ours. Her nose had a shape that wasn't like anyone on my side or Jenna's. And there were whispers from people over the years. "She doesn't look exactly like you, huh?" Always in a playful tone. I'd laugh it off. But now it echoed in my head. The second thing was medical. Lily had a mild allergic reaction at school, and when we filled out a form at the doctor's office, I noticed Jenna quickly crossed something out and rewrote a section about family history. I asked her about it later, casually. She brushed it off with, "I forgot my aunt had nut allergies. No big deal." But I remembered that we'd both checked off no allergies on previous forms. It didn't make sense. Still, I told myself to stop being paranoid. I was spiraling over a stupid TV comment and a bad memory about forms, right? Then came the moment I'll never forget, the moment the pit in my stomach became a full-body drop. We were cleaning out the attic for spring. Jenna was downstairs. Lily and I were sorting through boxes. I found an old shoebox filled with photos and cards from the early days of our marriage. Nostalgic stuff. Then, tucked between two baby shower cards, was a photo I'd never seen before. It was Jenna, visibly pregnant, standing next to a man I didn't recognize. He had his arm around her. Her hand was on her belly. She looked happy. Not just smiling for the camera happy, glowing, intimate, the kind of look you give someone when you're building a future with them. There was no date on the photo. No writing on the back. But it wasn't me. I'd never taken that photo. I didn't even recognize the guy. And she was very pregnant in it. I asked her about it that night. Calmly at first. She tensed immediately, then laughed like it was nothing. Said it was a coworker, just being supportive. Said I was being weird and jealous over old history. But the panic in her eyes said otherwise. She tried to take the box from me after that. Said she didn't even remember putting that photo in there. That she'd throw it out so I wouldn't obsess. Obsess? That was when it hit me. She wasn't confused. She was deflecting. She knew exactly who that man was. And for the first time, I let the thought creep in. What if Lily isn't mine? I didn't want to believe it. The idea felt sickening, cruel, impossible. But from that moment on, everything changed. Every little lie, every sidestep of the truth, every old story Jenna had told, they all started to feel like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known I was solving. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to stumble across the missing piece. And it would rip everything apart. After finding that photo, I couldn't unsee it. It haunted me. Every time Lily laughed, every time she called me Dad, every time I tucked her into bed, that man's arm around Jenna's pregnant belly crept back into my thoughts like a virus. I didn't want to go down this path. I hated myself for even thinking it. I love my daughter. I still do. She's mine, emotionally, spiritually, in every way that matters. But something inside me had changed. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to know the truth, not because I wanted to stop being her father, but because I was tired of feeling like the only one in the dark. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I bought a paternity test kit online. Not the kind you see on daytime TV. Something subtle, something I could do without raising alarms. I waited for Jenna to leave for a work dinner. I told Lily it was for a school science project, something about DNA and genealogy. I still feel sick about that part. She was excited to help. Oblivious. Trusting. I swabbed her cheek, then mine. Labeled everything. Set it off. The weight nearly drove me insane. Every day I checked the mail, refreshed my email like an addict. I couldn't focus at work. I barely slept. Jenna didn't notice, of course, or maybe she did and didn't care. She was in full distraction mode. Brunch with coworkers, sudden late meetings, yoga classes at weird hours. Then the results came. I opened email in my parked car outside the grocery store. I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. And then I saw it. One sentence. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. I sat there in complete silence for 10 minutes. No thoughts. No movement. Just shock. Like someone had turned off gravity. She had known. She had always known. And she let me pour my life, my heart, my soul into raising someone else's child, and never said a word. Not on our wedding night. Not when Lily was born. Not during any of the dozens of vulnerable, real moments when she could have told me the truth. She let me build my world around a lie. And that photo, it all made sense now. That wasn't a coworker. That was the real father. Probably long gone. Or hidden. Or worse, still around. That night, I didn't say a word to Jenna. I couldn't. I just sat next to her at dinner, listening to her go on about how the pasta was overcooked, nodding like I wasn't carrying the heaviest truth of my entire life. I looked at her differently after that. I watched her, the way she smiled, the way she avoided eye contact. The cracks in her perfect act were suddenly everywhere. And I realized, if she could lie about this, there's no telling what else she was hiding. The night I confronted Jenna, I was shaking. Not because I was scared of her, but because I was scared of what I'd do if she tried to lie to my face again. I waited until Lily was asleep. I even checked to make sure she had her headphones on and her bedroom door closed. I didn't want her to hear a single word of what was coming. I sat across from Jenna at the kitchen table. Calm. Cold. I didn't throw the printed DNA results down in front of her like a movie scene. I just looked her in the eye and told her what I'd done. The moment she realized what I was talking about, her face twisted. Not with guilt. Not even with fear. Just pure rage. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't fall to her knees begging forgiveness. She exploded. Screamed that I had no right. That I had violated her trust. That I had traumatized our daughter by swabbing her cheek without her knowledge. She called me a manipulator. A coward. Said I had serious issues and needed help. I sat there in stunned silence, watching her twist my betrayal into her victimhood. She tried turning it around, accused me of never loving her enough. Said I emotionally abandoned her during her pregnancy, claimed that if I had been more present back then, maybe she wouldn't have made that mistake. That's what she called it. A mistake. Raising a child for 14 years under a lie isn't a mistake. It's a long-term con. A betrayal with a slow drip for of false security and gaslighting. When I asked who the real father was, she refused to answer. Said it didn't matter. That I was the only dad Lily had ever known and I should just accept that. When I said I wouldn't live another day in this farce, she laughed. Actually laughed in my face. Said, "Fine. Go ahead. Leave. You'll come crawling back once you realize you've lost everything." That's when I realized something chilling. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She never had been. In her mind, she had me trapped. Emotionally, legally, financially. Because if I walked away now, I'd be the villain. The man who abandoned the child he raised. The monster who turned his back on an innocent girl. And worst of all, she knew I loved Lily enough that I might stay, not for her, but for the daughter who still called me dad. Jenna had been playing chess while I was playing house. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not this time. The morning after the confrontation, the house felt like it was wrapped in static. Jenna didn't speak a word to me. She moved around like nothing happened, made coffee, scrolled her phone, even tried to remind me to take out the recycling, as if the world hadn't completely shifted beneath us. I couldn't even look at her. I slept on the couch that night. Didn't sleep, really, just laid there staring at the ceiling, listening to the ticking clock in the hallway like it was counting down to something I wasn't ready for. I'd never felt more hollow in my life. Not even when my dad died. Not even when I lost my job years ago. Because this wasn't just about betrayal, this was about everything. My identity. My manhood. My family. My role as a father. It all felt like it had been carved out and replaced with something counterfeit. And then came the guilt. The worst part. Because no matter how furious I was with Jenna, I still looked at Lily like she was mine. Because she was. I was there when she took her first steps. I taught her how to ride a bike. I held her while she sobbed through her first scraped knee, her first lost tooth, her first middle school heartbreak. None of that was fake. None of it was her fault. But now everything I thought was us was infected by this lie. And it didn't stop there. The next bombshell hit 3 days later. I was clearing out the filing cabinet in the hallway, looking for Lily's birth certificate. I don't even know why. Maybe I just wanted to hold something real. Maybe I thought there'd be a name on it, some clue. But what I found instead was a folder labeled Personal, J. Inside was a sealed manila envelope. Handwritten. Old. It was a letter. From someone named Matt. The handwriting was messy, frantic. The date was from the year Lily was born. He wrote about how he missed her. How he couldn't believe she was keeping the baby. How he wasn't ready to be a father, but still wanted to be in her life if she'd let him. He asked if she'd reconsider telling her husband. Her husband. Me. I sat down on the floor and reread it 6 times. It was undeniable. This mad guy knew. He knew Jenna was married. He knew she was pregnant. And he knew I thought the child was mine. This wasn't some drunken one-night stand she buried in shame. This was a long con. A calculated decision to cut him out, keep me in the dark, and build a life on someone else's DNA. I confronted her again that night. Held up the letter. She barely flinched. She said Matt was a mistake, just another man who failed when things got real. She said she kept the letter because she wanted to remember how low she'd sunk before becoming a good wife. A good wife. I almost laughed. Almost. But I didn't. I just stared at her and told her the truth. She wasn't a wife anymore. Not to me. And she sure as hell wasn't the only parent Lily had anymore either. Because if there was one thing I knew for sure, I wasn't going to let Jenna twist this into another lie she could manage. I was done reacting. It was time to act. After I found that letter from Matt, I knew I couldn't just emotionally walk away. I had to legally protect myself too. So I called a lawyer. Explaining everything to her was surreal, like I was reading from a bad movie script. But she didn't flinch. She'd heard worse, she said, though rarely this cleanly calculated. The paternity test. The letter. The photo. It was airtight. She asked if Jenna had ever put me on the birth certificate. She had. My name. Bold print. I remembered signing it like it meant everything. Apparently, that could still work against me. Legally, I was Lily's father. Emotionally, spiritually, without question. But financially and biologically, the court would care a hell of a lot more about intent and deception, and my lawyer made it clear this wasn't going to be easy. The next move was to file for divorce. No waiting. No counseling. No half-hearted compromises. Jenna didn't take it well. When the paperwork was served, she lost it. Not quietly, full meltdown. Screaming. Crying. Accusing me of abandoning our family, of traumatizing Lily, of ruining her future. At one point, she actually threw a wine glass at the wall and shattered it. Not near me. Just theatrics. Always the drama queen when things didn't go her way. Then came the insults. She called me weak. Said I was pathetic for caring more about DNA than love. She flipped it like I was the one betraying them. Like I was blowing up our world over one little secret. It wasn't one little secret. It was a life sentence of lies. But here's where things got really twisted. She started using Lily as a pawn. Suddenly, every decision was for her. Jenna started planting ideas in her head. Telling her I was going through something, or not feeling well lately. Making me seem unstable. Even suggested we take a break from shared parenting while I sorted myself out. Translation: she was trying to erase me before I could blow up the fantasy she'd built. But I wasn't going to let her. I sat Lily down, just the two of us, and told her something terrible had happened between her mom and me. That we both still loved her. that nothing was her fault, but that things would change. I didn't go into details. I didn't bring up DNA or betrayal or letters from Matt. She was still a kid, but she was smart. She nodded a lot, asked if she could still sleep at my place on weekends. That nearly broke me. Meanwhile, Jenna kept spinning her narrative. To friends. To family. She told people I was having a midlife crisis, that I just snapped one day. I lost a couple of mutual friends who bought her story without question. But the ones who knew me, the ones who really knew me, they reached out. They listened. They believed me. One even told me something I'll never forget. Apparently, Jenna had been off even before we got married. Back then, she used to confide in a mutual friend, someone she didn't know I still spoke to, about a guy who dumped her when she got pregnant. She never mentioned me in those conversations. Only said she was handling it and had a plan. Her plan was me. By now, the divorce process was underway and the battle lines were clear. Jenna was trying to hold on to everything. The house, joint custody of Lily, the image of being the wrong wife holding a family together. But behind that facade, she was slipping. Her hysterics got louder. Her lies more elaborate. She told one of our mutual friends that I'd been having an affair, then told another that I'd had a breakdown and refused to get help. She kept changing the story depending on who was listening. Classic Jenna, bend reality until it suits her audience. I ignored it all. I had bigger things to focus on. My lawyer suggested something bold, track down Matt, the man from the letter. I wasn't sure what I'd even say if we found him. I wasn't looking for revenge. I didn't care if he'd known or not. But the legal implications were huge. If we could prove Jenna knowingly lied about paternity, and that the real father existed and could be located, we had grounds for fraud. That meant potential reimbursement for years of child support, financial damages, and a major leverage shift in custody. We found him. Matt, 42, lived in another city 2 hours away. Married now. No kids. Worked as a manager at some mid-sized logistics company. No public drama. No criminal record. We reached out quietly through my lawyer. To my shock, Matt agreed to talk. He didn't even flinch when we brought up Jenna's name. In fact, he looked exhausted, like he'd been waiting for this moment to catch up to him. What he told us, it changed everything. According to Matt, Jenna never told him she was pregnant until months later, when she was already married to me. She called him in a panic, told him she had handled it, that she had found a good man who was ready to step up. She told him to stay away, that she didn't want his help, and that she'd take care of it. He did want to be involved, at first. But she made it clear he wasn't welcome. He said he wrote that letter out of guilt, and because he felt like he was being cut out of something that was partially his responsibility. But then, he moved on. Until now. I asked him the one question I had been sitting on for weeks. Do you want to know her? Lily? He hesitated. Said he'd never stopped wondering about her. That he thought maybe one day he'd get a message. A knock. Something. He even said he'd kept a photo of Jenna from back then, not because of her, but because he thought one day his daughter might want to see where she came from. It was surreal. Here I was, staring at the man Jenna chose to erase from existence, a man who, by all accounts, was flawed but not cruel. Someone who had the right to know. Just like I had the right to know the truth 14 years ago. We didn't make any decisions right away. No DNA test. No contact with Lily. But I could feel it coming. The final unraveling. Because here's the thing. Jenna's whole life was built on keeping us apart. Me and the truth. Me and Matt. Matt and his daughter. Lies were the bricks. Gaslighting was the mortar. And now those walls were starting to crack. She didn't know yet. Not about Matt. Not about the meeting. Not about the possibility that the truth she'd buried over a decade ago was coming back to the surface, and this time, it had receipts. I didn't tell Jenna right away that I had found Matt. I wanted to wait until it mattered, until the moment would hit hardest, when the lies wouldn't have a single place left to hide. That moment came during a mediation meeting for the divorce. She showed up wearing her usual mask, calm, professional, maybe even a little smug. She spoke like she was in control. Referred to me as him in the third person. Told the mediator she wanted to ensure stability for Lily during this emotional chapter. All of it was scripted, polished, designed to make her look like the grieving hero of a collapsing marriage. I let her talk. Then, when it was my turn, I handed my lawyer the file. Inside were the paternity results, a printed scan of the letter from Matt, notes from our interview with him, a notarized statement where Matt confirmed the relationship and the timeline. The room went silent. Jenna went pale, then red, then ice cold. For the first time since this whole thing began, she looked trapped. Not cornered, caged. Because this wasn't something she could spin with tears or fake outrage. This was paper. Evidence. Dates. Names. The truth in black and white. She tried to speak. The words didn't come. Then came the explosion. Right there in front of the mediator, in front of our lawyers. She launched into a hysterical rant about how everyone's ganging up on her, how Matt abandoned her, and how I stole her best years. She screamed that I was tearing this family apart, and accused me of orchestrating this whole situation just to humiliate her. It was unhinged. But more than that, it was revealing. Because every single word she said confirmed what I already knew. She never felt guilty. Only threatened. Threatened that I had finally done what she never expected, dug deeper than her lies. The mediator ended the meeting early. Said we'd reconvene once emotions were under control. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. Word started spreading, not because I talked, but because Jenna did. She couldn't help herself. Her need to control the narrative meant she had to preemptively explain things to anyone who might find out. But the more she talked, the more it slipped. Mutual friends stopped answering her calls. Her own sister called me to ask if everything she'd heard was really true. When I told her yes, she whispered, "I always wondered." And then, the final, brutal blow, Jenna's employer put her on leave. Turns out, she'd used a few too many mental health days lately, and the emotional chaos she carried into meetings was making waves. People were uncomfortable. Clients noticed. Her world was shrinking. Fast. And me? I wasn't celebrating. There was no joy in watching someone unravel like that, even if she deserved it. I was exhausted. I was trying to hold myself together for Lily, who was beginning to sense the tension more and more. One night, as I was tucking her in, she asked, "Dad, are you and Mom mad because of me?" I froze, sat on the edge of her bed, and I told her, as gently and honestly as I could, that she had nothing to do with any of it. That sometimes adults make big mistakes. Sometimes they break promises. But she wasn't broken. She was the best thing in my life. She smiled and hugged me tight. Then asked if we could get pancakes on Saturday like we used to. I said yes. Because no matter what the DNA said, I wasn't going anywhere. But her mother? She was about to lose more than she ever thought possible. I knew this day would come. The day when she would ask. When Lily would look at me with those eyes I used to believe were mine, and want answers. And I wasn't ready. After the meltdown at mediation and the fallout in Jenna's life, things got quiet. Unnaturally quiet. She stopped texting except for basic logistical things. No more guilt trips, no more monologues, no more "What about us?" garbage. Just timestamps. Pickup locations. Who had Lily and when. It was like she knew the game was over. She was still in the house, for now, sleeping in the guest room, walking on eggshells, pretending to do laundry at 2 a.m. like she had a purpose. But the energy had shifted. She was scared now. Not scared of me, scared of consequences. Real ones. She was losing. Then one night, I was sitting on the couch watching old home videos. Torture, really, but I couldn't help myself. Lily's second birthday party. I was holding her while she tried to blow out candles. Jenna behind the camera, laughing. None of it looked like a lie. But now I couldn't watch without seeing all the cracks. That's when Lily walked in. She stood beside me, sleepy-eyed in her pajamas, and asked, "Who's that man in the photo on Mom's phone?" I froze. "What photo?" She said. She was using Jenna's phone earlier to play a game, and the camera roll had been open. She swiped. Saw a picture. A man. Not me. With Jenna. With her. I could barely breathe. I asked her what the picture looked like. She said it was old. The man had dark hair and a scruffy face. He was holding her, baby her. And Mom was smiling next to him. My heart dropped into my stomach. Jenna hadn't just lied to me. She kept souvenirs. Photos. Proof. Evidence she must have held onto all these years. Hidden trophies of the truth. And now our daughter had seen it. I didn't say anything that night. Just hugged her, told her it was nothing to worry about, tucked her back into bed, and kissed her forehead. But the next day, I confronted Jenna. I told her, with ice in my voice, that the time for pretending was over. That Lily was asking questions. That she deserved the truth, or at least some version of it. Jenna freaked. As expected. Told me it would destroy her. That I was poisoning her mind. That I wasn't thinking clearly. I told her the one thing she didn't want to hear. You don't get to control the story anymore. Later that week, we sat down with Lily. Together. For the last time as parents on the same page. We didn't tell her everything. Not yet. But we told her that sometimes, families aren't made the way we thought they were. That biology doesn't change love. That no matter what, I was still her dad, in every way that mattered. She cried. I did too. But then she asked if I would still come to her dance recital. Still make pancakes on Saturdays. Still cheer her on when she presented her science project. I said yes. She smiled, wiped her cheeks, and said, "Okay then." That was the moment I knew, no matter what came next, we were going to be okay. But Jenna? She had nothing left to hide behind now. No story. No spin. No mask. Only the truth. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. It didn't end with fireworks or dramatic courtroom speeches, just 2 signatures and a quiet shuffle of paper. She didn't look at me. I didn't look at her. There was nothing left to say. The judge ruled in my favor on nearly every point. The house stayed with me. Custody of Lily remained joint, on paper, but Jenna didn't push. She didn't fight. I think part of her knew what she'd done wasn't just morally indefensible. It was something she couldn't look in the mirror for. She moved out a week later. Took her clothes, a few pieces of furniture, and oddly enough, the coffee grinder we never used. She didn't say goodbye to me. She said goodbye to Lily, awkwardly, like she didn't know how to hug her own daughter. Lily barely reacted. That said more than anything. Jenna left behind more than belongings. She left behind 14 years of fiction. The scrapbook photos, the anniversary cards, the dumb inside jokes, all of it now sat in a closet I haven't touched since. The question I get asked the most, by the few close friends who know the truth, is, do you still think of her as your daughter? Yes. Without hesitation. Without doubt. Lily is my daughter. Not because of DNA. Not because I signed a birth certificate. But because when she cried, I was the one who held her. Because when she said, "Dad," I answered. Because love isn't biology, it's presence. The betrayal wasn't hers. She was just the collateral damage in Jenna's twisted rewrite of reality. Lily and I still have Saturday pancakes. We walk our dog after school. We make fun of bad movies and play Mario Kart like it's a championship sport. And sometimes, in quiet moments, she asks heavy questions. Why did Mom lie? I still don't know how to answer that. But I do tell her this. People lie when they're afraid. And your mother? She was afraid of losing something she never actually built. As for me, I've changed. I don't trust easily anymore. I don't romanticize the past. But I've also stopped blaming myself. Because here's what I learned the hard way. If someone builds love on a lie, it's not your job to carry the weight of their deception. It's your job to walk away, even if it breaks you. Because sometimes walking away is how you begin to rebuild what's real. I lost my wife. I lost the illusion of my life. But I didn't lose my daughter. And I didn't lose myself. Not forever. If you're reading this, and you feel like your world just fell out from under you, breathe. You'll crawl through the wreckage. You'll stand up again. And one day, you'll look around and realize, the life built on truth? It may be quieter. It may be lonelier. But it's yours. And it's finally real.